Before we get started, I want to share some news. After more than 250 episodes and 5 years of recording, ROG will be coming to a close at the end of this year. Hosting this podcast has been one of the greatest joys of my life, and I'm deeply grateful to every guest and every listener who's been part of this journey. Between now and December, I'll be bringing you inspiring new conversations with incredible leaders and change makers. And in our final episode, I'll share more about what's next. For now, let's get started with today's guest. My guest today is Bill Straub, founding principal and CEO of All4, an award-winning environmental consulting firm recognized 15 times as one of the best places to work in Pennsylvania and 15 times on the Inc. 5000 list for growth. Bill is a professional engineer, entrepreneur, mentor, and lifelong learner. But what I admire most about him is his kindness and humility. He's one of those leaders who makes everyone around him feel seen, supported, and encouraged to grow. For more than 3 decades, Bill has built a company and a community rooted in trust, integrity, and generosity. He's guided All4 through major milestones from startup to national recognition while keeping people and purpose at the center. I've known Bill for more than 30 years, and what has stayed consistent is his optimism, humor, and deep love for family and friends. He's a leader who genuinely lifts others up. Welcome to ROG, Bill Straub.
Thank you, Shannon. A lot to live up to right there.
You are consistent, and I just adore you. I'm grateful that we get to share you with our listeners. Thank you for making time in the midst of all of your business travel and hectic scheduling. So I'd love to start off with kind of a funny story of your early days. You started off as an environmental engineer, as a stack tester, only to discover that you're afraid of heights. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, what a bad first day on the job that is, right? If we're going to be honest. So this happened in my college days, right? I was studying engineering. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. Had a great family friend who's been an amazing mentor to me say, hey, you ought to be working for a local environmental consulting firm. And before you know it, I show up on the first day and he's like, you're going to be climbing smokestacks. And so the weird thing for me was I didn't even know that I was afraid of heights. And so it was very humbling to be climbing up a ladder to a platform that's 80 feet above the ground, only to have my legs shaking like crazy about halfway up. And then to be standing on a platform with my hand on the railing for probably the next 10 to 12 hours. So it was a reality into the life of a stack tester.
No doubt. We also have Clemson in common. And I didn't think I was afraid of heights until I got one of those nosebleed seats at a Clemson football game. And I was just like, nobody's leaving. Like, we're not leaving until this thing is over. Because it was like, woo. So I'd love for you to share with our listeners the story behind your company name and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, that's a special one. So I'm fortunate in that our company, All4, I founded it with 3 other professionals. One of them was my original technical mentor, which is pretty fantastic. The second one was another key technical mentor in my personal growth. And the last one was my lifelong best friend. And so to be able to start a company with that type of personnel and that type of relationship and relatedness was really huge. But we saw what it's like to go through some compromise in our first session together, right? So if we go back those number of decades like you're talking about, 2 of us were in our 30s. We had one guy in his 40s, another guy in his 50s, and we were trying to come up with a name. And so that was as challenging as it was to maybe do some of the more important things like find a payroll processing company and all that. But my most senior dear friend, he wanted to name us NBS Consulting for no BS, and he wanted to potentially spell out the BS part. So that's him in a nutshell. Kevin and I were thinking of all these fun and wacky, creative names. And finally, Dan, the one in the middle, said, like, how about All4? All for one and one for all. That's how we want to behave. And we did actually walk through and really think about how did we want to serve clients. So it really resonated with all of us. And then we played off the number, 4 and said, how about we just come up with the logo that fits that as well? So All for One is stuck. I would say that the original logo was more about the 4. And if you look at our logo now, it's really about the A and the all. So really a cool journey and one that we're proud of.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. It had so much meaning, and there was 4 of you, and just like, it must have felt like that light bulb moment of that's it.
It's
That's
pretty
such an
special.
exciting feeling. And that it has stood the test of time. Right? It is another like evergreen type of a company name and endeavor that is just always going to be meaningful to all of you.
It's interesting. Sometimes people are going to give us the A114, but we're able to quickly, kind of steer them back to the all four. And we show up at the top of most conference lists, which is also fun with that A.
That's what I was thinking too. Alphabetically, you're right there. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, what did those early days with your mentor and best friend teach you about partnership and trust?
Yeah, that's a good one. And that probably goes back to a couple different things. One, growing up together, if you start with just the lifelong best friend, there was a commonality of values. I think from the beginning, he and I knew each other. We spent a lot of time together. We played sports together. We valued the same things. So that was always special that we've had that for our entire life. And I think to me, I had a similar experience with my most senior technical mentor that shaped me, right? Shaped me professionally and shaped me, I think, from the perspective of generosity and just how you treat people and how you react. And I think the story for me around John was, I was a young engineer working on an early project. We were working together. And I sent this table off to a client. And this table was in the form of a fax. So I'm going to date myself right there, right? It wasn't an email or anything like that. I sent him a fax. And so this fax shows up, and before you know it, I have this pit in my stomach when I look at it and realize one of the numbers wrong. And so I go down to John to kind of share this aha moment of, what did I do? What did I mess up? How's he going to react? And all those things. And he's like, well, let's just get on the phone and call the client and we'll work through this. And so before you know it, he's dialing the number. And in this matter of 10 to 15 seconds, I'm scared to death, right? My hands are sweaty. I'm trying to think about what I'm going to say, how I'm going to own this screw up, all those sorts of things. And as soon as the client picks up the phone, John just jumps right in. And John jumps in a way where he owns my mistake, right? And he just says, hey, I messed this up. Bill's going to fix it. He's going to get it back out to you shortly. And know that we got you. And the client's reaction really told me about the relationship that John and he had for many years. But as soon as we hung up the phone, I just sat there and I probably had to pick my jaw up off the ground. And I just asked him, like, why did you do that? Like, that was 100% on me. And he's like, listen, we're a team. And he was the senior team member and it was his responsibility for the work. And that mistake rolls all the way up to him. And so that impact that he had on me in the first 6 months of my career was probably more than he would have realized. And so that resonated for me on two levels. One, I grew up playing team sports. So you always were trying to be there for a teammate. And the fact that I had a coworker that was in that same role, was really impactful to me and kind of validated all the lessons and the feelings and the hard work and all the things that I was used to in the sporting world. And second is it validated everything I learned at home. And so to have life at home and core values match up with somebody in the workplace, I just found very freeing, right? So freeing from the perspective of how to be able to go out and learn and to grow and potentially make mistakes and bounce back and all that sort of thing. So, just a great example, I would say, of generosity, so that you then tie that story all the way back to starting the company. When you have that type of trust, when you have that type of relationship, we thought this guy was the limit. We had a very high degree of confidence we were going to be successful.
Yes. Let's take a step back even further because you mentioned your family life, your upbringing. Leaders like you don't just come out of nowhere. You come from a great family and those core values that you talked about. So just tell us a little bit about your background.
People that know me know that family is that's foundational for me.
Yeah.
So I've been fortunate. I always say my family was not perfect, but it was perfect for me. And so it was great what I learned, just the core values through my parents, my aunts and uncles, the continuation of family and how I've tried to take that into, I'd say, the work world. We call it our community because everybody has a different reaction to the word family, I think. So it's the all4 community. But how we treat each other, foundationally, I think there still is a lot of love at the base of all that. And so that's something that I carry through. And having family first is something that I grew up with. And I certainly hope that I've instilled that to my own children.
Thank you for that. And I think that's an important reminder to give grace and credit and respect and thanks to people who have shown us how it's done, including John in that moment, right? How he reacted to that and owning the mistake and that we're all in this together. Because, people say that, but to actually live that and to make choices and to own that mistake on your behalf and just how profound that was for you and the ways that you've multiplied that in your own career with the people that you're responsible to says a lot. So you've often said as a founder that you're the recipient of generosity, that clients take a chance on you and that, they trust you. And that's something that you're so grateful for. So what has that being the recipient of generosity taught you about leadership?
It's such an interesting thing, right? If you think about four guys stepping out and starting an environmental consulting practice, and we were working for, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, and they had that trust and that willingness to put themselves out there within their own organization to continue to use us. We just felt that was like just a tremendous, I almost call it the ultimate form of generosity in the business world, right? And so as I think about that, we're 20 some years into this thing called All4, and we still do work for 8 of our 10 clients that we worked with in the first 6 months. And so that just brings me a lot of joy, and it speaks, I think, to the relationship that we build, to how we poured into it, and how they equally poured into All4. And so, it's fun for me personally. I still work on and we still work with the first client that I ever did a permitting project for back in 1990. And so that type of longevity is pretty special. I don't take it for granted. And I think I would call it legacy knowledge of facilities, in addition to legacy knowledge of relationships and our understanding of their culture and their alignment with our culture, is what's led us to be successful and have those long-term relationships. So a ton of gratitude there.
For sure. And no doubt they feel that gratitude that you feel to them and that commitment. And you're always looking to grow and evolve yourself as a human, as a leader, and also as a company. So I think, your clients benefit from that and likely really appreciate that you're always growing and evolving to support them better. How do you and your team pay that forward or honor generosity every day?
Yeah, I think generosity, to me, if I really look at that kind of internally, right? And what
Mm-hmm.
does generosity look like? And so there's things that I guess I see. I think for me, generosity is tangible in that it's tied to our success, right? And you were kind enough to open the program talking about our ability to have consistent growth, which is great on a business side.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, I would say, that cultural growth, right? And so that's the one thing that we hear all the time as we grow from our team is, we can't lose the culture. And we constantly spend time saying, no, we need to continue to grow and have the culture evolve as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
lose anything, right? Because the culture is different today than it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago and all that. So
Right.
while it's really fun and neat to say that we win all these awards and benchmark ourselves, against our peers, I think the best outcome of that for us as leaders is the feedback that we get, right, from the
Yeah.
employees. And so
Right.
it allows us to continue to evolve with the culture and to evolve the culture. And so then when our employees are given that feedback, talk about generosity, right? Because it's authentic, it's actionable, it makes us
Mhm.
better as a company culture, it helps retention, it allows us to just continue to be best in class. So I think
Mhm.
that's pretty exciting. And if I think about some things that we've heard over the years in those feedback surveys that we get, there's
Sure.
some common things that we hear year over year, and some common things that we now really put at the top of the list: flexibility, community, excellence, collaboration, and growth, and then proximity to leadership. All those things kind of, to me, have an underpinning on gratitude.
Oh, that's great. And you're tracking with that year over year, you're getting their feedback, responding to it. And I don't know if this was in response to feedback or just something that you wanted to initiate, but your cross-coaching program is
Yeah.
something that's really unique and interesting. And at All4, it's not just about like formal coaching, it's about like mentoring and being available for people as they grow and develop. Can you tell us a little bit about your cross-coaching program?
Yeah, and the cross coaching program is certainly part of our HR group, and of my other founding partner Kevin, is something he's really passionate about. And what we've seen is sometimes it can be difficult to be very authentic about where you may be struggling, where you see personal areas for growth, when you're speaking to a manager who potentially controls your salary, your bonus, your
Mm-hmm.
performance review, et cetera, right? So we looked at a way of how can we continue to help people evolve and grow, and do it in maybe a different way. And so we certainly have mentors for when folks come on, but mentoring to me is, I'm going to say, maybe sharing wisdom or experiences or perspective, whereas that coaching piece is more about really promoting self-discovery,
Mm-hmm.
being curious as a coach to be able to draw out, if you will, what's important to the coachee, right? And then to be, I'll call it an accountability buddy, to
Mm-hmm.
help them really live up to their declaration. And so our program that we have, it really connects coaches and coachees. It's absolutely optional, so you don't have to enter the program. It's really about those people that find themselves at a place where they want to grow and they want to take themselves on in certain areas. And then it just allows them to be intentional and routine about this. And it's for a set period of time. So you don't get one coach for your life at all for it. Maybe for this period of time, I want to work on these couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
So the coach's role is to be an active listener, to really ask so that they can be curious about what does the coachee want to learn, to be authentic, right, with that feedback, because sometimes people aren't always in action about things they declare, and you've got to call them on it.
Yep.
But then also to advocate for them. So to make sure that they can be successful in putting some of this learning and some of the growth into play.
Yes. And I love how you just brought in your 4 A's. I mean, obviously, I'm a super geek fan on all four. And I know your 4 A's, which is active listening, asking to learn, authenticity, and advocating. And that all of those feel like a generosity framework, right? Like I've just been analyzing ROG over the past 5 years, and those are key tenets of generous leadership. And I love that. So, which of those four things would you say comes most naturally to you, and where is your biggest growth area?
I think the thing that I've been working on for most of my leadership journey is on authenticity, right? And so if I think about my early career, I probably wanted to be liked. I think most of
Mhm.
us want to be liked, right? But from a leadership lens, I think being authentic when things weren't going well is something that I constantly had to work on. And it was interesting. And once again, thinking about our leadership team and our ownership team, it felt like Bill was always the good guy and maybe some of the other folks were the bad guys, right? And so this is something I've been very intentional about, being authentic and taking myself on in that lane, right? So that's an area that I'm working on the most. I think the listening piece is something that I can maybe hear the unsaid, is something, a skill that I think that maybe I've been fortunate to be gifted in this whole coaching process as well.
I love that. That's so true. And really that framework being so consistent, does that make it easier for people to remember some of the ways in which they can show up as a strong leader at all four?
I think it can. I think the key to it is that it's very personalized, right? This coaching program is really personalized. So, as I think about some of the folks that I've coached, some of them are working on leadership voice. Some are working on how do they create their maybe structural framework. Others are looking at how do I get promoted from here to here, what's missing, right? And so each one is really personalized. But I
Sure.
think to your point, that framework allows a coach to say, no matter who I'm working with, let me go back to these foundational,
Yeah.
kind of attributes of what the coaching role expectations are, and I can
Mhm.
go from that playbook.
Excellent. That's so great. And internally, client relationships can feel competitive, territorial, like this is my book or this is my territory or my client. And at all four, you have more of a, like you used the word community earlier, where we're all in this together and it's all four clients, not my clients or yours. How do you enable that? And how has that changed your culture?
It's interesting to say that, because that really started, I would say, in our early career. Kevin, our COO, and
Mm,
myself.
yeah.
Here we are. We were lifelong friends working at a previous consulting firm. We're working with different project teams with different clients, and what we found was when we were getting together at night after basketball, I'm asking him questions, and we were doing things for our clients that he wasn't doing for his clients, and vice versa. And we were doing things in a different way. And we kind of looked at each other and said, why are we not sharing these learnings? Why are we not being collaborative? It almost feels competitive, right, in this environment. And so I think it was something that shaped us early in our days. And probably at the end of one of those nights after basketball, when we might have had a beer or two, we might have said, one day when we're in charge, we're going to do it different.
Yeah.
And we're kind of fortunate that we were able to start something, and we did intentionally want to do it different. And so what does that look like? I think for us, it was about how do I not how do I not develop my book of business? How do I develop the All4 book of business? And so one of the things we modeled a few years into the business of All4 is we let go of the clients that we had grown and brought to All4 as the four principals. And so to watch other people now take on those clients, it was really, really special. I think it was really impactful. And what it promotes internally, I think, one, from a what's possible for me, it shows a career progression. It shows that you can have a future and a career at All4. I think it also shows that we practice what we preach, right? In this, we show that we're going to be a different type of culture. It goes back to the all for one and one for all. We have very, very consistent meetings where we share technical expertise every single month, right? We have leaders that are sharing things out on our internal, we call it our core page, right? So we are very active in sharing internally. We're not afraid to share externally out into the space. We don't hoard our information to just all four clients. We want to shape environmental responsibility, which is part of our vision statement. So I think we have taken what we learned early on and we said, this is how we want it to be. And then we look at how has that been adopted by the folks that have joined All4, right? And so I think it's just been really magical for me to watch people really embrace that and realize and get to feel and experience generosity at work, and to have, the younger folks, if you will, or the new folks take things on, and to feel the gratitude of being given that chance. And so it's become self-promoting, if you will.
Right. Sure.
And
It's really ROG, right? Because intuitively, or just more like, well, if I give away something, I have less. Or if I don't have my own book of business, I don't own anything. But it's one of those, like, just trust me, this works, right? Like, the return on generosity is that when we look at this as All4 clients or our partners, and we can share the wisdom, and we can also share the setbacks, that we can be stronger for that. And it's more energy generating than it is consuming.
it's not easy, right? Like, we all have our comfort. That's like a security blanket, that client that you've worked with for a long time. But
Sure.
when you hand that off, we celebrate that, because then that's you paying it forward, to your point, right? The ROG.
Yep.
And then it allows you to be in a growth mode, to try something different, to put yourself in a position where you need the support of everyone else. So it's been really neat to watch it. Are we 100% successful? No, but it certainly permeates our culture, and it's neat to watch. I celebrate kids that started out of college that have now been with us 20 plus years, that are leading, major clients, or they're leading their own team, and to know that you can have that type of journey, that's pretty special.
That is so special. Oh, I know. And I know a couple of your specific stories of employees and how you've seen them grow over the years, and how you've encouraged them to do what's best for them and their careers and their lives. So there's a lot of generosity there. And I think that consistency really helps as you're growing and scaling, and you've brought in new partners and you've had new chapters of ownership. How do you sustain that culture that means so much to you? You also mentioned the friendships, these lifelong friendships. You talked about Kevin, going back from basketball teammates to now business partners. What has friendship taught you about leadership?
I think it highlights to me the concept of trust, right? I think what I see is when there's high degree of trust, especially in teams, the sky's the limit, right? If there's no fear of judgment, if there is an openness and a willingness to call somebody out when maybe you don't agree, when it allows you to really dig in deep and to get to the concept of full alignment, it's magical, right? It's psychological safety to go try to be bold. And so I think we had a head start, and maybe you need that when you start a company with three other people, because often we heard of all the horror stories of how that can break down. And we actually, because of that high degree of trust, because we were clear about what we wanted to accomplish early on in the business, and I think that allowed us to be successful. And we've tried to build those same types of trust in all of our high performing teams as we've gone forward.
That's incredible. So it's all about trust. I'm sure you've had to have a lot of open conversations, sharing things that bother you or things that you're afraid might happen, or, honest feedback.
I mean, we're a feedback organization. We do not have a formal annual review process. those reviews are ongoing, right? You're constantly giving feedback and assessing, and that's a 360 feedback scenario. So
Mm-hmm.
I think once again, it's something we strive to get 100%. We're probably not there, but there's certainly a clear understanding. We train people how to give and receive feedback. So there's a consistency in what we say and what we do to support that.
That's incredible. So looking at your team today and how everybody operates, what's one thing that you're most proud of about how people show up for each other?
The thing that I would say that strikes me the most probably ties back to something I started to share already is when you can have people that have, if you will, grown up in the culture of all four, and you watch them mature into leaders that inspire others.
Yeah.
That's inspiring to me. That's really inspiring to watch them do it. And I would then say one of the cool things to connect it maybe to more present is as part of us getting a new capital partner a little bit while ago, we had the opportunity for employees to buy into the business, right? And it was something that we had declared back in 2004. And so here we are 20 some years later, finally executing on something that we declared, and to watch the reaction of people to that, and to have the participation that we had of people to put their own money in, right? To say,
Yes.
I want to be an owner of all four. That was really fulfilling and really satisfying to watch that play all the way through.
That's incredible. So for our listeners who are not familiar with what you're talking about, back in 2004, you and your partners had a vision for what?
So we were founded in '02, but in '04, we said, hey, one of the long-term success here would be that we can have employee ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty interesting because all four of us were coming off of ownership scenarios that I would say did not go perfectly, right? So we were a little bit jaded. And so we kept thinking about how can we make this happen? How can we execute? How can it feel a way that feels very natural? And so we got really intentional probably in the 2014, 2015, as we looked at succession planning for two of our original founders. And then we thought about how do we navigate that and how do we bring others in? And so I was fortunate to get a lot of insight from folks that have navigated that. Some navigated it well and others not so well. And for us, it was about when was the right time to offer it to our folks. And so I feel really, really good about the journey. It leads to education, right? There's business education there. There's
Sure.
involvement in decision making that you want to continue to raise people in. There's leadership responsibilities, accountabilities, understanding the impacts that they're having. So we kind of rode that journey together, with the whole goal being, one, we wanted people to all participate and win the same way. And two, and this was probably an underlying, maybe just nagging at the back of our neck, is we didn't want them to experience something that we experienced, right? Where it didn't feel
Right.
perfect. And
You
so,
want to do it right.
so here we are today. Could we have done it a little bit earlier? Maybe. But just proud of the fact that we have executed on it, and that we got people in a place where we are all rowing in the exact same direction. People are being financially rewarded in a similar way, and that's exciting.
Yay! I love it. And that you all, 2 years into launching this thing, were all clear that this is something you wanted to offer, but you wanted to do it right. And you had to work through the evolution of all four to get to the place where you are now. And just you have to feel so proud of what you've got there. And just the level of participation, like you said, is just such a great indicator. Talk about feedback, right? That's direct feedback from them to you about how much they believe in it and they want to be a part of it for the long haul. So
Absolutely.
when you talked about like how you've seen people grow up through all four, from like right out of college to the kind of leaders that they are now, it reminds me of parenting. And, like you think you only get to shape the individuals who you're blessed to raise, right? But then you like, as a leader, you're like, oh, and then I get to be a part of these other people's lives as well. So just as a segue to your personal life for a second, like how does generosity look outside of work for you, like with friends, families, your community?
I think it's inherent to who you are, right? And so generosity, I believe, should show up in all aspects of life. I've been fortunate. I shared with you, I love sports. I was coaching kids sports, helping to run, different leagues. So outside of just coaching, more into the league stuff, active in other, community, charity opportunities. And so it's something that, one, I felt early on. I certainly have felt it from my family, from my in-laws, how they show up and behave. And I had some mentors in, I would say, in the professional world that talked about, I'll call it the responsibility, but they don't
Yeah.
hold it as a responsibility. I think they hold it as it's just, once again, part of, gratitude and generosity.
Yeah.
It's just part of who they are. And so I learned early on of what it looks like to volunteer. And then I was the recipient of some of that, even, right? I did a couple of charity events, and people financially supported me and the charity that I was passionate about in a way that I couldn't comprehend. And it was just neat to hear. I asked them why, like, why, what is it
Yeah.
about that? And I think one of the things that really struck me one time was the abundance mindset, right? If you come from a place of abundance in everything that you do, it leads to more gratitude. It leads to more people being impacted and all that. And that really struck me early in my professional career. And I said, how do I take what I'm doing here and be
Mhm.
consistent in all aspects of my life?
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. All right. So you ready for some rapid fire questions, Bill?
I think so, Shannon. I got it. So let's do it. I love it.
All right. What's the first word that comes to your mind when you hear generosity?
Gratitude.
The best advice your mentor ever gave you?
Always be honest and don't hide a problem.
One quality you admire most in others?
Humility.
Here's a tough one, but you're good on your feet. A book, quote, or an idea you return to often?
I'm a quote
I know you
guy.
love your quotes.
Yeah, you
Yes.
know that, right? One that I've been working on personally very hard, I got to give a shout out to my Ted Lasso friends. Be curious and not judgmental.
Yes. Yes. My husband, Mike, on his screensaver, it says, curiosity is harder than judgment. It's just in the same vein, right? It's like
Yeah,
easier to judge than to wonder. Favorite place to recharge?
that one brings a smile right away, doesn't it? You know it. The winner is going to be the beach. I mean, the beach is my happy place, and I will say the golf course is a close second because you could just put me out there by myself, and I'm a happy man.
And off you go. Yes. Oh my gosh. Right. There's just something therapeutic about the ocean, like the smell and the seeing the waves. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's such a recharge place. Who is a musical artist that instantly lifts your mood?
OAR. It connects all kinds of stages of my life, uh,
Yeah.
from my siblings to college friends to my own children. So that just spans my entire life, and it makes me smile. I am a Taylor Swift fan too, so I'll just own that.
What's a small act of generosity that you've witnessed recently?
Oh, I had one that really impacted me, and you and I both travel, and we know what that can be. And oftentimes, you'll hear when you land, "Hey, we have a couple of passengers that have a tight connection. Can everybody please stay in their seats?" And I don't see that be successful very often. Let's say, but we were on a plane, and the way that the flight attendant teed it up, and the impact that I saw it have on everyone around me. And it was the first time that I've ever watched everybody stay seated. Five people from the very back came all the way up to the front, and got off the plane first. So I just thought that was really cool community generosity in
Wow.
flight.
All right, last one. If you could relive one day with your founding team, what would it be?
See, I'm gonna connect this back to my happy places. How's that? So I mentioned the
Okay.
beach and the golf course. So early on in All4, we did a retreat at Seaview down in New Jersey, and it was a miserable weather-wise, but we had put golf on the itinerary. And I would say that of the four of us, two of us like to golf a lot. Another one will golf and can enjoy it, and the other one does not golf at all, but he wanted to be part of that, and he wanted to make sure that we did something as the four of us. And I just saw it as just a nod to all of us and to the importance of us as a team. And
Yeah.
so I'll never forget, we were on like the 16th hole. It was 45 degrees, it was windy, we were all soaking wet, and I just looked, and everybody had a smile on their face because we
Yeah.
made a joke. And so it was this, I don't know, this shared pain, if you will, but it also allowed me to sit there and go, wow, this is my squad, right? My squad's on the floor
Yes.
almost. And I felt the grittiness, and I'm like, if we're all doing this, we're going to be successful. So that stays with me to this day.
That's such a great memory. Oh my gosh, I love that. And look at it now, like in hindsight, right? Of all the things that you've accomplished together, and you've had lots of laughs and you've had lots of moments to require grit, and you've done it. That's amazing. Well, I've admired your ability to lead with generosity so consistently. You make people feel special and seen, and you've never lost your humility or your humor. And I just so deeply appreciate you as a leader and as a dear friend.
Well, thank you. It's great to be on here, and I have listened to these for many years. So to think that I'm on one of these makes me smile and makes me chuckle a little bit too.
Thank you, Bill.
Great time. Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks for listening to ROG and for being a member of this community. As we wrap up this chapter of the podcast, I'll be sharing what's next, including updates on my book, The 5 Degree Principle, and my online course, The Power of 5 Degree Change. And if you're looking for another show that celebrates generosity and kindness, I encourage you to listen to Crazy Good Turns, hosted by Frank Blake at crazygoodturns.org or wherever you find your podcasts. Until we meet again, stay generous, everyone.